dreams die. Rely on yourself and no way. Believe.
Morning. Everybody was doing good. I hope. Uh, we gonna get into this topic today, and it was requested, I think, a couple of weeks ago by somebody. I forget who. My apologies if I forget who it was, and I've had some time to think about it, even watch all uh, others speak on it, and something hit me. Now, something hit me pretty heavy, and we're gonna go over a few things, and then I'll go into what we actually are gonna come away with for this, at least from my perspective. We're gonna get into the word first, then we'll get into the conversation. Okay. Now, if you look throughout the book, you will find examples of this thing we call tithing. Um, and we're only going to look into a few, not really a few, but a fair amount. Um, all I'm going to be doing is rattling off the verses, okay? And then we'll go into the reasonings behind them. Um, Malachi 3:10, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Almighty Lord, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing, there'll be no room to store it. Okay, you've heard people use that verse before. I'm sure you've heard people use that verse. They use it a lot. I've heard it countless times when talking about tithing. Leviticus 27:30. A tithe of everything from the land, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, belong to the Lord. It is holy to the Lord. Okay. Proverbs 3:9 and 10. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim with new wine. Deuteronomy. Um, be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year. Corinthians, each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion. God loves a cheerful giver. Will a mere mortal rob God? You rob me, but ask, how are you robbing you? In tithes and offerings, Malachi 3:8. So you see there's a slightly running theme here. Um, the first fruits usually with their crops, and honoring with wealth. There are a few more verses like that, especially in the New Testament. Luke, give and it'll be given to you, a good measure pressed down, shaken together, run. And you've heard that particular one, and they say that all the time. Matthew 6:19, do not store for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and all that stuff don't mess with it. Acts 20, I did everything, in everything I did, I showed that by this kind of work, we must help the weak, remembering the words of the Lord himself, it is more blessed to give than to receive. You get the gist. I'm sure that many of us grew up or are still part of certain congregations that have this particular um, verbiage going around all the time. They just keep repeating it over and over and over as part of the tithing command in some statements, or tithing request, or tithing ought to do kind of thing. Okay. So let me ask the most obvious question. For what purpose should we tithe? What purpose should we tithe? Because I think that many of us, and I think we should be honest with each other. Okay, cool. You give to get, right? Okay, you give to get, because we keep hearing that if you give, God will. If you give, God will give back. If you give, this is what you would get. If you give, blah, 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 blah. I am sure you've heard that mindset all the time. Usually, when they tell you about tithing, they tell you as a reciprocal kind of thing. You do it in order to either gain favor, funds, finances, or just money back or something. You always get something for giving it. Even in the idea of um, give what you've purposed in your heart. Remember, there are two things, and this is where I'm going to go into my idea of this. There are two factors I never hear anybody talk about. Never. In all of the things I've listened to about tithing, I have never listened to anyone say what I'm going to tell you. And I'm not saying that because this is so profound. I am surprised no one has said this because it seems to be the most obvious thing out there, at least in my eyes. When I hear a tithing talk and I hear the term purposed in your heart, the first thing I have to think to myself is, isn't that supposed to be a renewed thing? Isn't the heart supposed to be turned towards God so that when I have my idea of in purposing in my heart, shouldn't what I purpose in my heart match God? So is it really what I purposed in my heart, or is it what God is purposing for himself in my heart? You see, even in people reading whatever you purpose in your heart, it's always about them. That's the first thing. The second thing is this: who are you tithing to? Okay. Because we have right now this idea of giving to the Lord through the church. So let's ask again. I like elephants and elephants in rooms. Uh, are you giving to the current iteration of the church? And are they deciding how that money is used? Or are you giving to God? Because if you remember correctly, please, this is all about context, right? Cool. Um, let me get you the context of what I'm speaking about. Do you remember in the book it mentioned the people gave what they had and everyone sold? Remember that? Everyone sold their possessions. Do you remember that? We're going to read that portion real quick. And I want you to listen to something very, very carefully. Okay? That's stated. So this is in Acts chapter 2. Okay? And we're going to go from verse 40. And with many other words, he testified and exhorted them, saying, be saved from this perverse generation. Then those who gladly received his words were baptized, and that day about 3,000 souls were added to them. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayers. Then fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done through the prophets. Now all who believed were together and had all things in common, and sold their possessions and goods and divided them among all as anyone had need. So, continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity in heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. I believe we ask the wrong question when it comes to tithing. See, what we talk about with tithing anymore is that we are going to give a portion of our goods. We are going to give up our income. We are going to give of our time. We're going to give something to do with giving of sorts, right? But I still keep. I still keep. Okay. I still keep. Is the church right now functioning like the body should function? The answer is blatantly, obviously, no. No, it's not. When you look around at the many churches that are here, they don't function like the church is listed in the book. They're not pooling resources. In fact, it's pooling, but in the cavern and coffers of the leaders. That's where it's pooling. They have the fancy cars, they have the fancy homes, they wear the fancy jewelry, and they wear the nice clothes, all of it, right? Designer shoes. It goes for the stage, it goes for the equipment. The money doesn't go to the poor. In fact, you have to apply for help from the church now. You have to make yourself known as someone in need. They don't even know you're in need because they don't care that you're in need. They're not checking to see if you're in need. But they do depend on your giving, your tithe. They love that tithe. And they'll tell you that your tithe is going to go towards helping the church. But when you read the book, the church is supposed to be helping you. And you ain't getting no help. You out there struggling. You out there beating a piece of coal to try and get a piece of diamond. That's what you're doing. And the church ain't doing nothing. In fact, you get the bare minimum. You have entities and churches that have billions of dollars of worth, and majority of the parishioners are broke, destitute, dying. But they talk about tithe all the time. They talk about the storehouse. They talk about giving to the body, give to God. And every time they talk about giving to God, it's always about giving to the organization, which tells me in turn that they consider themselves the God. I'm not saying you shouldn't give to people, give to causes and all that stuff. No. I'm asking you to analyze where you're giving from. Are you giving because you were told to give and you're expecting something back? Or are you going before the Father to find out what his hand is going to do with his stuff through you? That's the question. Are you allowing him to use you to dish out his stuff? Because it's not yours. It ain't yours, is it? No, well, he said it wasn't yours. So what are you giving? If you say you're a believer and it's not my will but thine, my life is no longer mine, the life I have is Christ's life, I've been dead to me for a while now, how are you giving anything? How are you in charge of dishing anything around? Tithing has become something of what we can brag about doing. I tithe. Good for you. Now, when was the last time you allowed God to decide where your money goes? When was the last time? or your energy, or your resources, or your time? When was the last time you let him decide that? You see, that's the portion of tithing we don't really want to talk about. We love to talk about tithing from I'm giving and me and my perspective. It's all about you. And the law says, the book says I should give a tenth of everything. Okay. Okay, cool. If you give a tenth of everything, do you actually give a tenth of everything? Do you actually do that? The people that like to chime in on the tenth and the 10% and the 10%, 10%, do you give 10% of everything? Because something tells me y'all don't. I know y'all like to say, well, I'll give 10% of my paycheck. You won't give 10% of your bank account, though. I'll give 10% of my paycheck, but I won't get 10% of my time. I'll give 10% of my paycheck, but I won't give 10% of my prayers. 10% only applies to checks, my paycheck, what I just got paid. 10% is not really even something that they can point to as a law to do either. Because if you look at the 10% that was mentioned in the book, it is a quite different thing than now. It really is. I don't think people really get that. I don't think so. Or, okay, do you follow Malachi's example? Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. Where's the storehouse for the church now? Is it a bank? Because he's talking about food here. He said, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse that there may be food in my house. Do we do that today? That seems kind of weird. In Leviticus, do you follow this one? Tithe everything from the land, grain from the soil, or fruit from the trees. Do we do that still? Oh, the time change, and it's a different kind of thing now. So if a farmer is part of your congregation, should he bring the tenth of his field and bring it to the church? Oh, wait, it's feasibility and how things, it's a whole different system now. I get you, right? Okay, cool. Does it say that this changes with time? Or did the church or the body or people that follow God that stops, that they no longer have a storehouse? Or was this about a law that was given to a very specific people that you now want to try and take on to yourself? How about Deuteronomy? Be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year. That's kind of interesting. Do we do that now? I mean, that says a tenth right there, right? How about Numbers? I give to the Levites all the tithes in Israel as their inheritance in return for the work they do while serving in the tent of meeting. Do we have Levites now still? Huh. I'm just wondering which one, when you guys say a tenth, which one are you adhering to? Do you really give a tenth? Or do you decide what part of your life that tenth applies to? Hmm. Matthew 23:23. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. Isn't that weird? That He's mentioning to you that all the stuff you're doing doesn't matter because you're not even using it the way it should have been. Even in the breaking out of the saying that we collect all and everybody sold everything they had so nobody was in need. Or the Pharisee and the tax collector. How about that one? I fast twice a week and I give a tenth of all I get, that braggadocious thing. Do you notice that in every time he mentions the tithing and the tenth, it was always in relation to the law, always in relation to something that they did as part of the law? Always. If Christ is the fulfillment of the law, the tithing moves from a command to an out of the heart issue. But if the heart has been reformed, then now Christ is in charge of moving around what finances, time, and resources you have. It is no longer your resource, it is his resource. If it means giving your very last dollar, then it gives your last dollar. But are we really prone to doing that? If it means to staying up late and working till the midnight hour for free for somebody else, is that part of your tithing too? No. No. Being called to drive to someone's house to help them 5 hours away at 2 a.m. That's not a tithe though, right? Tithe is only money. You know why they use tithe as their marker? Because it's tangible, countable, and they can get credit for it. People that ask for tithe really don't give two craps about whether or not you can make it the next week. They're about trying to gauge your loyalty for them. That's it. That's all. It's a loyalty check. It is a loyalty check. The same people will be upset with you taking your so-called tithe for that church and taking it somewhere else. You're not sowing into the fertile ground of this particular ministry. Who's deciding that? Who's deciding that? You or God? Our biggest answer to this question isn't about the tithe. The biggest question we have here is about heart. It's about heart. You purposing in your heart, if your heart's supposed to be consecrated to God, means that by proxy, you have to what? Go to Him to decide it. It's His. You're not tithing something that belongs to you. If you say that you're a member of His body, that's what you say, then maybe consult the head. I see so many people being told that if you give, you get. If you give, you get. If you give, you get. You know what I'm saying? It is always about the reward that you get. Even though he said not to store treasures down here, we still listen to idiots telling us that giving is a good way for you to get treasures. That is just insane to me. The idea and the concept is now being pushed that you can literally purchase the promises of God, you can purchase the blessings, you can purchase favor by giving. No, and I'll tell you why. Because if you remember What the word said, if we're going to go by it, it's to honor the Lord with your wealth, right? There were rich people back in the day. Did you know that? Jesus was buried among the rich in his death. He was. Job was rich. David was rich. Solomon was rich. Abraham was stinking rich. Abraham had wealth, mad wealth. What was the biggest denominator between them? What was the common one? They did not take their wealth to be theirs. Never did. Even when Jesus was talking to people about wealth, the young ruler guy, what do I do? I've done everything. Okay, sell. Sell it. What do you mean? No, sell everything. Go and sell everything, then come back and talk. I'm sure in his following of all the rules, he probably was giving too. Remember? Part of that thing of following all the commandments is the tithe, right? Cool. I'll bet you he was tithing. And here comes Jesus saying, nah, that's not enough. I need to sell all of it. Everything must go. Clear house. Sell it to the dirt and then come follow me. Yeah, I ain't doing all that because my goal for giving was to get, and now I have. So I'm not going to just give that up. Nope. It is an odd thing, but that's just the way it is. We like to hold on for ourselves. I can tell you how simple it is. I know people keep saying that you hear this voice and it's probably something that tells you. Here's how I tell people about this whole idea of hearing God, okay? I'm not saying that he doesn't have a way to tangibly, audibly, I can't say yes or no. I know for me, I know for me that the times I have said to myself, I heard from him, you don't get a contradiction from the word. Meaning, if there's something I'm supposed to go do, what I am doing falls squarely within the confines of the word. I can find examples of it, and I can confirm that the reasonings for which I'm going to be doing something matches the word. It's really that simple. And it will. If it's from him, it will. 100% will. All the time. Every time it will. Every time it will match. You won't have to try and stretch. You won't have to try and manipulate and reinterpret. It will be in there. I guarantee you it'll be in there. But this idea of tithing has become a pain to many because they've been told that this is the way in order to get your blessing. We hear all the time, give and it'll come back. It's weird. Many of us just don't want to admit that we give for the purposes of seeing how much God is going to give us back. And we give in proportion to what we want to see come back to us. So we're like, we hope that if we do something for somebody pretty big, then something pretty big will come back to us. And if you don't give, they tell you that, are you really honoring God by saying no? This is where we are, though. My question is, are you giving to the church because the church told you to give to them? Or is the church doing what they're supposed to do, which is take everything that's there and never hold on to it? Technically, it's supposed to just be a pass through, a distribution center. That's all the church is supposed to be. It's just a distribution center. What comes in goes straight back out. It doesn't go into the funding for something over here and something elaborate on the left and something elaborate over there. That's not what it goes for. It goes to the body. That's like, consider tithing blood. Consider it blood for the body. And the church being the heart. Now, the heart pumps, 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 and it sends out. Everything it articulates through in the arteries and it's going, and it sends it out. Pulse, pulse, pulse. If the heart stops, blood stops flowing. Cool. The church today is like a non-operating heart. Stagnant blood everywhere. It's supposed to be doing its job by distributing, and it's not doing it. And you end up having a dead thing. When in reality, what it should be doing is continually funneling, fueling, giving the body what it needs. They don't do that. Do you know how many homeless people are in churches now? Do you know how many people are within the walls they can't find food? They don't have a vehicle to get around. They don't got a job. They don't. They don't have anything. And they're in the body and they still find a way to give. So to answer the question, that would take some reading. Okay. And here's what I mean. And I don't mean just reading the book, but reading the room. Is the church telling you that offering is part and parcel of your salvation? If they say that, they're lying to you. If they tell you that you have to give, they're lying to you. If they say that you ought to, that's one thing. Have to, they're lying. If they have fundraisers every other day for certain things, then it's not giving generously. That's just using you. Those are just factual things. That's not even opinions. That's just not the way it's listed in the book. Period, point blank. I don't care how you read it. That's not what it's for. We have come so far from the model that's in the book. It's crazy. We have to have all of the elaborate stuff. And to have the elaborate stuff, you're going to need money. So what do you need? People to give. You have to pay people. So we need to give. You've heard this one? We got to keep the lights on. So you got to give. Everything's about you got to give. Just you. And if you don't do it, understand that that's horrible. Who do you think you are? You better start giving more. If you don't give more, listen here. So is tithing biblical? It used to be. Used to be a command. Used to be something they were told to do. But since the renewing of the heart through the death of Christ, he dictates where all you have goes. It is not for you to decide. In fact, I would dare say that the majority of the time, he will take your funds and put them in places you don't want it to go. Like, for instance, you are driving down the street and a panhandler is out there. How many of us think to ourselves, I'm not giving them no money. He's going to use it for drinking. He's going to use it for drugs. Be honest. How many of you think that? How many of you think like that? You see somebody on the street, they have their little sign up, and you don't want to give them any money because you think they're going to use that money for drugs and drinking, right? How do you know that? By appearance? That sounds an awful lot like what he said not to do. Why do we want to give to the clean cut professional panhandlers but not the dirty ones? We don't mind giving to the panhandlers in suits. We don't mind giving money to the panhandlers behind the pulpit. But as soon as they become destitute and need help, that's where I cut the line off from my kind of panhandlers. Just a thought for you to think about. They abuse your money worse than a drunkard ever will. A drunkard might take your money from you, and you might be the one person to say, God bless you. And that one statement alone could cause them to think twice about what they're going to use the money for. You never know. Or they could take the money and run. But is it about the return? You see how we still apply the get back even when we give to bums? You see how we still apply that? You see how ingrained we are? We give to get what we want. I will give to that man if I can guarantee that he will use his money for the way I want him to. Then I will give out of the generosity of my heart. But outside of that, I don't want my money going to something bad. Your money. It's your money. What if you saw the same panhandler over and over and over and over every day? And every day you give him money. Every day. And every day you tell him, God bless you. Every day. One day he stops you and he says, hold on, hold on, hold on. Why do you keep giving me money every day and saying, God bless me? Don't you see I'm homeless? Don't you see I'm this? I said, I do see you as homeless. That's why I say, God bless you. And I do see that you're homeless, which is why I'm giving you what I can give you. You have a perfect opportunity to share tons of information with that person. They can still be homeless and saved. You know that, right? You know that, right? They can be homeless and saved. But here's the crazy part. The church that's around there, he should never be homeless. That's the crazier part. With the kinds of churches that you see the majority of homeless people, there should be none. None. The church should be the one entity building buildings and having facilities and locations for the homeless so that they're not homeless. Instead, the government needs to, and the government need to be the government. That's why I got me a nonprofit building for the church. So why? You don't have to pay taxes so you can have more money. It should have more money to go to the poor, but instead the more money goes to the leadership. Tithing in today's age is a pyramid scheme. And even in our private life, it's become so ingrained in us that we are unwilling to help the lowly and the discarded because we believe the discarded are going to do what the discarded do. And that means we don't want our money going to that. He's going to buy drugs and he's going to buy drink and he's going to do all that stuff. Okay. Yeah, he might. He might. But that is not your concern. Your heart should be giving freely to all who are in need. The tithing isn't just for the church, it's to God, right? And if he's not willing that anyone should perish, then you should be fine with giving your funds to a homeless person, a panhandler, one who is a professional person that will absolutely pillage your money, you know it, still give it. Give it. If he is in charge of what you are giving, and you have given out of the heart that he has given you, don't you think, maybe just a thought, don't you think that maybe he's got that part covered? Just maybe. Hmm? Just maybe. See, we keep thinking we want to have God's job. We want God's job. We get to decide what people do and don't do. You know, 2%. Crazy thing. The incidents that I've had with this kind of thing, where I will give money to people, homeless people, and then they just go poof, disappear. And I would think in my mind, these people are in the worst possible positions, gross kind of living conditions, and they just disappear. I have to start wondering, was that one of those situations he's going to come back to me and said, when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was naked, you gave me clothing. Is that going to be one of those situations? And how am I supposed to know which one is and isn't? If I have purposed in my heart through Christ to do something with what he's given me, then it's not my worry about whether or not that person is going to do the right or wrong thing with my money. It's not my money. I've told you all about the hitchhikers I picked up, including the one that gave me a hammer. I mean, the man smelled absolutely. He stepped in the car, and I know he had been out there for a bit because he was of urine and alcohol and cigarettes. That was the three most prominent smells he had on him. 6 a.m. in the morning. Raggedy clothes, one backpack. The shoes he had on was barely there. Offering me a hammer, an old splintering wooden handled hammer, ball peen on one side and a hammer at 6 a.m. in the morning. My natural mind was thinking, this man's going to kill you. He's offering you a hammer. And even then, I was not really engulfed in the thing of God, but I was still, I think, on a journey. Took the man to where he had to get to. He got out the car. I took the hammer. I needed one anyway. So took the hammer. And once I dropped him off, I looked back and there was nobody else there. It was still bright enough. It wasn't tail end of summer, so I could still see at 6 a.m. He wasn't there. Never saw the man again. Not one time. That's happened more than a handful of times with me. And it has codified one very important thing to me. I don't know when I'm going to entertain one of his unawares. And I cannot judge the person by saying, I don't want to give them money because they're going to do blah, 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 blah. If it is about him and I, God and I, then it is no longer my funds and I am just supposed to give. Give. If it's freely you have been given, then freely you give. If that's the case, then give. And without the expectation of getting back. Think of it this way. Christ gave his life, right? With no expectation. He would love that people would be saved, but he also knew that people would not. But he gave the absolute thing, the life that would save us all. And there are many that still won't take it. I'm just saying, look, for all of you out there who are concerned about whether you tithe, how you tithe, where you tithe to, should I tithe enough? No. Let me have you ask yourself one very important question. Is it yours? If you are Christ, if you say you belong to Christ, is what you're tithing yours? And do you get to decide how it's used? If you can answer those two things, I think you might be better off in your giving. Even if you give to the church and they're exploiting it, this is about your journey. However, discernment is also very pivotal. And if they will abuse what God is using, should you be there? Hmm? Should you? If you can blatantly see them abusing God's stuff, should you be there? That's the discernment portion. But your giving is not to get. Your giving should be coming from understanding that this is not mine, this is His. I don't own it. And wherever it goes, He controls. It's really that simple. Look, I put this that, okay, I'll show you. I do this all the time, right? And I tell people, talk to God about it. There'll be two kind of people that will say, see, he's begging for money. And there'll be those that say they're going to give. You know what the odd thing about it is? I'm not worried about who does or doesn't. Here's what I've noticed happening. If I am in dire straits of stuff, God provides. Why? I'm not stingy with what I have because it's not mine. It's just not mine. Okay, look, I have issues with the way things function at the body I used to attend, right? And right now I'm doing something for them. Granted, I am getting paid for it because it's work, okay? It's not a whole lot, but I'm getting paid. Now I can do it real bitter like and say to myself, well, because I disagree with this, and this, I'm not giving anything of my time, and even if they are paying me. Or I can say to myself, wait a minute. This is a skill God gave me. I have a specific skill. They're in need of that skill. If God gave me this skill, then shouldn't I be able to use that skill as God sees fit? Do I need to hold on to anything, a grudge or anything like no? Because I think I would have done it even if it was for free. Why? It's not mine. I don't know what God's going to do with that. I don't know what He's going to do with the opportunity of going to do something for. I don't know what He's going to do. And if I don't know, and I'm not in charge of it, but I am in charge of my resources and managing things the proper way, then I should do it. Tithing is more than money. Tithing is time. Tithing is attention. Tithing is many things. But we like to tie it to money because it's tangible and you can go back and say, see the receipt here? Look what I did. I gave last year alone, I gave almost $100,000 to the church. You want to live the life like I do? Give a lot of money. Money will do it. Yeah. I am not trying to advise anybody of how you do your funds. But I am going to tell you if you are a member of God's body, you don't have funds. I hope that made sense. I am not here to tell anybody how to handle your funds. But I am here to tell you if you say you belong to God, you don't have funds. You are a steward of His funds. Make sure you get that right. It ain't yours, it's His, which means you got to consult Him to know where He wants to put His money. If He wants 90% of your funds to go here, take it. Take it there. I don't know how will I know when to trust me and believe me. I don't like how people just like, is he going to talk to me and blah 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 blah. I know this might sound silly, but when you know it's him, you're going to know it's him. Two things I've found that's very true so far about the way that when he says something to do something, this is one, the very first thing that pops off in my head is not, oh, that's a good idea. If the very first sensation I get is, it's him. if, say for instance, I'm passing by somebody and they ask me in the car window, can I have $20? And I go, yeah, that's my cue to give $20. That's my cue. That's my cue to give exactly what they asked me. Trust me, guys, you will know. Especially when you spend more time, it will become very obvious. Secondarily, it doesn't matter because it's not yours. So anything that's asked, you should be doing, especially if you can find something that correlates with it in the word. So, tithing. That is my take on it. I know people are going to be upset about certain things, but if you can show me one where the command is to be done just because, I'd like to see that. If you can also show me where the church today is doing what the church back then that took tithes are doing, I'll be happy. If you can tell me what exactly we are to tithe, I'll be happy about that too. So there are tons of questions for y'all. I'm settling my mind. I just want to know what questions y'all might have that might think that my take on this is off. We'll see. We'll see. Savage Patriots will be on today at 6:30. Too Strong more than likely will be live tonight as well at 8:30 Eastern. And we'll have good discussions on both. The Zoom meeting is so far still on for Sunday. However, look for that to possibly not be. But for now, right now, everything's good for Sunday. Okay. Monday, I will not be on, as far as I know. Again, I'm waiting on a time slot for something to happen. And once I know that, then I can make a better decision about Monday. But I think I should be able to be on Monday, even if I go early. Okay. I have not had time to edit the Zoom meetings, so I apologize to put them up. I really want to just put them in a playlist. And what I might do is just have a picture up or something during the conversation, as opposed to everybody's video. It'll still be the audio, but I just won't bother with putting the everybody's video up at the same time. You know what I mean? So I don't want everybody out there just because if y'all want to meet each other, show up to the Zoom. I'm not going to just blast you on the internet. But when I get some time, I'm going to sit down and edit it, but it takes some time, and I'm not the best editor there is. We'll see how that turns out. In any case, scrolling at the bottom, we just spoke about what you should do. Talk to who you got to talk to, and you know who that is. That'd be God, and see what he wants you to do or not do. Okay. I appreciate all you guys' time, efforts, and everything, and your prayers, all of the above. We'll see you guys later on today on the other platforms. Wisdom calls to you from the streets, so please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself and no way